Mullah Street.
Every day on 4CA, John Mackenzie, 1300 872911.
Now, recently we've had numerous reports, you would have heard of them on this radio program, of these kids around the CBD now carrying knives, carrying screwdrivers, whatever. It's de rigueur now. I mean, listeners may remember, it's probably quite a few years ago now, 8 or 9 years ago, we first heard of one of the kids in town carrying a knife, and we thought, my God, we haven't heard of that before. Now it's all over the place. These little kids, through the afternoon, they're going and holding knives at the throats of business people in town. Anybody seemingly that gets on the wrong side of them, cops it, gets a threat, and it's just got to end. Well, maybe it will soon. What we had last Thursday, sadly, was in one of our local buses. The usual thing, the confrontation the driver has to endure from one of these kids for whatever reason. And a bloke stood up from further back in the bus and went up there just to lend some moral support to the driver. Went back to his seat after seemingly the thing had settled down. What happens? Down comes, allegedly, the kid with pulling a knife and stabbing the fellow who'd actually intervened to protect the driver, stabbed him in the stomach. I mean, this is happening in our beautiful little city of Cairns, and it just has to end somehow. Will the Wanding do the good job? I don't know. Here we go. This is from the Courier Mail today. Lives have potentially been saved after multiple knives were taken off Queensland streets at the weekend as new Wanding laws crack down on bladed weapons. 6 knives were detected and seized from 586 scans across 4 days. Now, this is to the Gold Coast. 387 was scanned, 2 knives found. Brisbane, 146 scanned, 3 knives seized. Townsville, 53 people scanned, 1 knife found. Now, we don't have the access to them yet, but I know a hell of a lot of people are saying, bring it on. We need this urgently in Cairns. They quote here the Regional Acting Deputy Commissioner Mark Wheeler saying he was pleased with the results, but people still were not getting the message. Well, they won't be getting the message here in Cairns until at least they know there's a chance they're going to be wanted. I just want to talk with somebody who knows about these matters, about whether it's going to do the job or not. I've got the Associate Professor in Criminology at Bond University, Dr. Terry Goldsworthy, on the line. Terry, good morning.
Yeah, good morning, John.
What do you think of these early results? You've heard those figures there. You've seen them in the Courier Mail today. Is that encouraging, or is it too early to say?
Look, I think it's encouraging. I mean, the reality is there's no reason for anyone to be carrying around a knife in public, unless it's part of their job description. But, it's good to see that these weapons are being located and taken off the streets. I mean, the hit rate for the Wanding is quite low. It's just over about 1% of those wanted actually have had a weapon. The most common one was a folding knife, followed by fixed blade knives. Scissors were there as well, and then some of the other weapons with things like an axe, hammer, box cutters, machetes, screwdrivers and knuckle dusters. So, I mean, the people who are carrying those kind of implements around in public are just looking for trouble. And, often the excuse is given, it's just for my protection. Well, you kind of ask the question, well, why would you need that protection in the first place? What activities are you going to get up to?
I know what you're saying, Terry, about quite low, but I've got to say to you, just recently, the figures that are coming out of Cairns show that we're one of the most crime-ridden communities in the country now. So per capita, I think it might be a different situation here. We've got kids who are about 11, 12, 13 who are carrying knives or weapons of some sort now. So that's going to be interesting too. Will the police be able to actually wand people that young, 11, 12, 13, because they're among the prime offenders and they're out and about in daylight hours through the afternoon?
Yeah, look, my understanding is they will. In the trial that was done, they were wanting people from the age of 10 to 17, okay. So there's no reason they can't. In reference to knife crime in Queensland, it's been increasing about 10%. Each year from 2017 through to about 2020. So they did see some reductions in knife crime in a trial that we had down here. I think Surfers Paradise went down knife crime by 17%, Broadbeach 2.3%. Interestingly, though, the areas around those two places that didn't have Wanding trials also saw decreases in knife crime. That's 18% for Southport. In Coomera, knife crime went down by 41%. Now, they didn't have wanding trials, but I suspect that people heard about the wanding. They didn't necessarily associate it only with safe night precincts, and therefore didn't take the knives out in public. So I think it's had a flow-on effect to those areas where it's not actually being used.
Terry, what's gone wrong? You would have had, decades in what you do, and when you started, I can't imagine you'd hark back to hearing about kids stealing cars, 1, 2 and 3 getting together, let's go and beat up on the coppers. And then, for example, in Townsville a few weeks ago, those 2 police cars were targeted by 3 stolen vehicles. The police had to take refuge in their own police station. I understand 3 police had to have time off because of the trauma of it all. These kids go and burn the cars afterwards. And yesterday, the bloke turns up, holidays in Townsville, parks his car, rent a car, it's stolen. But before it was set on fire, they used it once again to ram a police vehicle. What is going on, Terry? When you started in your studies, this would have been unheard of, wouldn't it?
Well, yeah, I think it's a whole range of things, John, and this hasn't happened overnight. It's been years of the justice system being eroded, essentially, I think, by decisions made by government. And if you look at that, I'm talking about things such as, the latest crime figures came out. I mean, they were 9 months old, delayed, released on Thursday just before the Easter weekend, hoping that no one would notice them. But in those figures, we saw that in Queensland, personal offences against the person, assaults, rapes, robberies, etc., the rate went up 45%. In relation to property crime for Queensland, it had gone up 12%. But the flip side of that is that we've seen a 5% reduction in the proactive police enforcement, things like arresting people for good order, traffic offences, drug offences, etc. So those offences that are indicative of police being out and about and getting on top of crime are going down, while reported crime from the public is going up. And, in terms of young people, we know that those serious repeat offenders, their cohort has almost doubled. They're responsible for about 50% of our crime. And, in reality, we've got these very strong pushes on to raise the age of criminality to 14.
Yes.
People are saying that, too many kids in jail, but the actual facts show that very few end up in jail.
Yes. All the wrong direction. I'm just astounded by that figure. You said personal crimes, of the personal crime, 45% up. In what period of time, 45% increase?
That's over 12 months from 2021 to 22, yeah. So 45% increase.
That is obscene. How could that happen in a year? Why is that happening all of a sudden?
One of the reasons they've put forward is that domestic violence crimes associated with domestic violence now being recorded. To me, that doesn't quite ring true because, it's always been a practice that if you went to a DV and someone was assaulted, that you would take a complaint of assault. So it seems to be that that's being trying to be written off as, we're now recording DV crime. Now, if you accept that explanation, then it opens the problem for the police, the senior executive of the police, is that how much DV-related crime have you been ignoring? Because, the rate of DV reported crime has gone up by over 150% in that 12-month period.
Yes.
So, either way, there's problems for the commissioner, who really needs to get out in front of the public, and rather than doing stunts like doing RBT, somewhere at 10 o'clock on a Monday morning and over the Easter weekend, needs to come forward with a strategy that she's going to use to address the issues around the spiralling crime rate in Queensland.
The 5% figure on police, can you go through that with us again, please? We're desperate for police on the beat up here. We're desperate for police to respond to break and enters, particularly businesses in town are really copping a pizzling. What was that 5% figure about?
Yeah, so 5%.
Copping a pizzling. What was that 5% figure about?
Yeah, so 5% relates to other offences. Now, generally, they're almost all offences that are created by police proactive enforcement. So, police do a drug arrest, a traffic arrest for someone with a knife, etc. They get captured under other offences. So they are indicative, to quote, former Commissioner Ian Stewart, they are indicative of police efforts in regards to policing. So they have declined by 5% in the last reporting period we just got the data for. So on one hand, you've got less police activity, but you have more more crime getting reported. So what you want is actually the flip. You want more police activity,
Yes.
and you want other crime going down. So we're in the wrong direction.
How are we going to attract more police to the force, Terry?
Well, I think there's a number of things could be done. I mean, I think rather stupidly, the service proceeded with sacking those officers who didn't want to take a COVID shot, etc. I mean, I think the circumstances changed, and yes, they did disobey direction, but I think it was an exceptional circumstance. And given the fact that the service is falling short massively of its recruiting numbers, I would have thought you would do anything to retain experienced officers, and that perhaps they should have been given a bit more latitude to either be brought back into the service or not disciplined the way they were. I think that was a very short-sighted reaction by the Commissioner. Down here in the Gold Coast, we've got police stations operating at half capacity.
No.
I was speaking to police the other day. He told me one station has a strength of 33, I think, and they had 15 police on the roster. So you can't actually meet your operational demands with that lack of staff. So I think the Commissioner, who has had a number of issues now in terms of crime rising, the DV inquiry, etc., I think is really under the microscope here as to what she is going to do. And it's going to require more than just some PR stunt. It's going to require some very well-considered strategy that should be made public so that we know exactly what plans she has in place to address these kind of crime issues.
Terry, this has been absolutely invaluable, this update. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Dr. Terry Goldsworthy. He is the Associate Professor of Criminology at Bond University. It's 10:28.